What's going on, guys? We're back in the shop. Thanks for tuning in to Chili Willie's Media. I'm Chili Willie, and here today we are going to be working on the wiring harness, wiring system, whatever you want to call it, to get this bad boy fired up. So let's dive into the episode. So here we go, guys. We're going to start on the bench here. Some of the wiring components that I have. I got some 14 gauge wire here, 25-foot lengths. I got 7 different colors there, so we can run 7 different wires together and know what the heck we're wiring. I got a main breaker switch here, a 200 amp breaker switch that we're going to run from the battery to the relay to power the fuse box. I got a whole pile of relays. I had 3 sitting around from previous projects, you know, whatever, wiring in stereos and lights and such in previous vehicles. I got a 10 pack of extra ones there, even one there. We got 6 here. We got the voltage regulator, old Dodge style, so you can power it with the Dodge alternator with this little pigtail here that we'll get that guy wired in. Here is it's a Mishimoto fan switch. So this is normally for a 1 fan setup. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna wire this in tandem with 2 of these relays, so it powers on these 2 relays, one for each fan. And this guy will just tell these relays when to open and close. We got just a cheap mechanical temperature gauge, just so I can hook that up under the hood, make sure we're not melting anything down. We got a little fuse block here. You can run 12 fuses on there, and you can run your ground as well. And then a couple terminal blocks so we can wire multiple relays in and get that all cleaned up. And then over here, this is the wiring harness out of the 93 Dodge D250. And then I actually had picked up on Kijiji here, another interior wiring harness from a W250. I don't know exactly what I'm all gonna use. I originally got all this because I was gonna run this bulkhead at the firewall, but this engine side bulkhead piece is busted on the bottom here, so I don't really want to run anything busted. It could still work. I haven't decided, but anyways, if we don't run something like that, then we're going to have to get a bulkhead connector. But yeah, anyways, here's the wiring that goes to the engine that hooks up all the sensors. There's a lot of unnecessary things on there, but there is some necessary plugs, like this guy, I believe, is to calculate the RPM, the revolutions of the engine. And then there's other stuff like fuel heater and stuff like that, which we're all going to delete off of there. All we need to do is run water, voltage, and oil pressure. Those are the only 3 gauges we need to run from there. And yeah, so here's some extra bits from the D250. Then we got the block heater cord from the Cummins. And then this I just swiped out of the 99 F-350. And then there is the factory 67 wiring. Not sure what we're going to use off of there. I always thought it'd be kind of cool to run this fuse box just because it says Ford on it. That'd be kind of cool to have underneath there. I don't know. I'll see if I can peel it apart and maybe use it. Who knows? But anyways, I'm going to start laying this out in front of the truck as if it was under the hood, and kind of, yeah, how I'm going to wire it all up. The only thing I'm really worried about is ignition to start the engine, the fan cooling, my temperature gauge, and that's about it. That's all I care about right now for the wiring. We'll figure everything else out after, like headlights, marker lights, tail lights, interior lights, stereo, yada, 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 whatever. Okay guys, so where we're gonna start here is we're gonna start laying this stuff out in front of the truck, how it would be under the hood. Full disclaimer though, all we're worrying about is one, firing the truck up with the key. Two is the fans that they'll turn on at a certain temperature. We want that. Make sure we're not melting it down. And three, getting this temperature gauge hooked up underneath of the hood, just so we know how hot the truck is. So after that, I really don't care. We'll slowly pick away at the wiring, build the wiring harness. I think it's all going to be custom. I was getting overwhelmed with all those wires sitting over there, and I started drawing it out, and it was just getting super frustrating. So I think I can build a simpler, easier wiring harness all by itself. That's why I bought all those wires and relays and everything, just for simplicity. So yeah, let's get it started. We'll get it laid out in front of the truck, start building the harness, and we'll get it to fire up with the key. Hopefully by the end of this episode. It might take a few days because there's a lot of thinking, brainstorming, and yada yada and such. So anyways, let's get it. Okay guys, so after staring at all those components on the ground for a while, I just started plugging away. I didn't really film any of it. Super boring stuff. But fast forward, it's about a week later, and I'll show you kind of what I got going on in the engine bay here. So some stuff is temporary. I'm waiting on a few components to come in, like a crimping tool to make custom lines, because this just looks like trash. My breaker isn't hooked up. I just have the battery directly hooked up to this relay, 150 amp. But anyways, over here is the fan controller. This is the Mishimoto controller with the relay there that powers these two relays, and each one of these guys is for each one of the fans on the dual fan unit. So they're actually wired reverse, that the switch is the ground, and then we got the positive wires coming up to this fuse box here. Everything's fused. We got relay, Mishimoto controller. Then we got the fan direct and the other fan direct there. So yeah, the battery gets hooked up to the power here, and then this is controlled by the ignition. After the ignition gives this power, this relay turns on this whole fuse box, and then so this whole fuse box is switched power. I just got my bulkhead connector in the mail, but we're still waiting for a crimping tool so I can crimp the bulkhead connector. I'll just grab it and show you it. So here it is. This is from Mavin Performance. And I'll just show you the connector here. So this is the idea, is that this thing will get screwed to the firewall somewhere, and then it'll just be one big plug that just turns off like this, and then this just pulls out. And then you got your pins. I think this is a 29 pin Deutsch connector. So the idea is so that when we pull the cab and everything off, it'll be a single plug plus a few wires, I'm sure. And yeah, this thing will be pretty slick. You just kind of line it up here, plug it in, and give it a quarter turn, and it locks in like that. So I'm just waiting for my tool so I can crimp the Deutsch connectors onto each wire, and then we can start wiring into the cab. I went with a 29. I think it's more than I actually need for this old rig, but anyways, that's kind of what that looks like. So we're gonna mix up, we're gonna do a few temporary things with the truck just so we can get it fired up, and I'll show you kind of my idea what I got going on with that. So here I had a loose piece of plexiglass sitting in the shop here, and this is the idea that this will be the ignition to turn the ignition accessories on, and this will be my starter switch here to control this relay. This is wired to the starter solenoid, so this, when you hit this, will power this relay will power that solenoid. This will power this guy. It'll be hooked directly to the battery and then to this terminal, which gives the fuse box power. This green wire is an override for the fans, so you can hook it directly up to a positive, and the fans will run no matter what, just so we can get it running, and then we can control it here, set the differential as to when you want the fans to turn on. And then I have a temperature gauge there that we're going to wire in there temporary, just so we can see exactly what the temp of the engine is. Make sure that the fans I'm going to have turn on around 180, 190. And yeah, so we're going to get this switch, this starter switch, this temperature gauge wired up, as well as I'm going to run a wire to the fuel solenoid, get that on a fuse switch here. And the goal is to get this thing to fire up. And then we're going to fill it full of fluids, power steering fluid, brake fluid, and antifreeze. And after that, we'll see. We'll probably get some drive lines made up, drive shafts, and then we can move this puppy around. Oh yeah, and we got to get hydraulic clutch fluid in there for the hydraulic clutch. So let's get these guys wired up so we can get the engine fired up from this panel. And obviously this will be the kill switch, just like that. So let's get her. Okay guys, I'm going to show you a few temporary wires I got hooked up here, and then we'll get to hooking up our control panel here. I got a temporary ground hooked straight to this other ground that'll go to the battery. Coming down here is a kind of a main ground point, and then I hooked a wire to the fuse box, so that'll be properly grounded straight to the battery. These are all temporary wires here. The one going to this relay, this one going to the starter, just because I don't have, like I said, my crimping tool for the big wire lugs. So some stuff's got to be temporary in the meantime. But anyways, also I guess I got the temporary wire here going to the fuel shutoff, wired to the fuse block here, 15 amp. We're going to wire in the starter switch power to this 25, to the relay, to the solenoid, and I got this temperature gauge kind of piggyback wired into the starter switch that's getting the power there, just so we didn't have to run so many wires. So let's hook this guy up. We'll throw a battery in there, and we'll see if it cranks over. Guys, so I got the test light, I got it grounded out, and we got positive here, we got positive on this side of the relay, and then we'll go on the other side of the relay here, and when I flip this switch up, it gives the fuse box power. So I can see on my temperature gauge it slightly moves when I turn that guy on. So in theory, when I press this button, the starter should turn. So I'm actually going to disconnect the fuel shutoff. Just in case there's some fuel in there and it wants to fire. So cross your fingers, here we go. Okay, so we got starter action, that's beautiful. Then let's test this override for the fans. So that's working beautiful. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to dump some diesel into the fuel tank. I'm going to hammer the crap out of the lift pump to try and get fuel into the engine and see if we can get it to fire up. Okay guys, I'm hoping I don't have to prime the injectors or bleed the air out, because I didn't crack anything loose since the last time we fired it up. So what the heck, let's hook the fuel solenoid up and we'll crank it over a bunch and see what happens. Beauty! Oh yeah, that is super sweet. I think I'm going to get some antifreeze in there and we're gonna let this thing come up to temperature, and I'll be here ready to switch the fan on just in case something happens with the controller that it won't kick in. Guys, that's going to be a wrap for this episode. We hit a pretty big milestone. We got our fans wired in. The controller is working correctly. We got ignition switch and starter underneath the hood. We can't move that into the truck until we have our Deutsch crimping tool so we can do the main plug on the firewall. So we need that to come in the mail yet. There's piles of wiring left to do. We got to do the throttle cable. We got to fill up the power steering fluid. We got to fill up the brake fluid, hydraulic clutch. We got to get that all in order. And once that's all in order, we're going to loom some of the wiring up, and then we're going to load it up, and we're going to get some drive shafts made. And then finally, we'll be able to move Arnie on its own power. So that will be super huge. Super big accomplishment for myself. So yeah, let's fire it up one more time. That never gets old. I just love that the intercooler is all hooked up. We're spooling like we should, and that thing just sounds sweet. So yeah, as always, thank you for tuning in to my YouTube channel. I know about 75% of you guys are not subscribed to my channel. I need you guys to subscribe to my channel so the algorithms can pump our videos out to more people, so we can grow, so we can make a bigger channel. And yeah, thank you for tuning in. Hit the like button, smash subscribe, and as always, till next time, peace.